If I were starting van life today, knowing everything I know now, after years of traveling in my van, there are quite a few things I would do differently. When I built my van, I was trying to make everything work on a budget. And honestly, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. But living in it, traveling in it, and dealing with the little things over the years has taught me a lot. So today I want to share the things I would change if I were starting over again. And some of these are things I could change, but I really wish I'd thought about them 5 years ago. Number 1, I would have a much bigger slush fund. The first thing I would change has nothing to do with the van itself. I would have a much bigger emergency fund, or what I call a slush fund. And honestly, I would make it as big as possible because things break, mechanical problems happen, appliances quit, unexpected repairs come up, just general repairs every year cost money. And then there's the things you don't necessarily consider emergencies, but that make traveling easier and more enjoyable. Maybe there's a special event you want to attend. Maybe you find something along the way that you really want. Having that extra money gives you options. One of the biggest things I've learned from traveling is that having a little financial breathing room makes van life much less stressful. So if I were planning your build, don't put every last dollar into the van. Leave yourself some money for actually living and traveling in it. Number 2, my second change would be the refrigerator. I would have bought a dual propane electric fridge. I have propane for heat, so I have it. My current fridge uses electricity only, and there are times when I'm trying to conserve power. For example, at night, if I'm not going to open the fridge, I sometimes turn off my inverter. That saves electricity. But with a propane electric refrigerator, I would have had another option. I would choose which power source made the most sense depending on where I was at and how much electricity I had available. It's one of those things that seemed like a small decision when I was building the van, and they were much more expensive. But after years of living in it, I can see how useful that flexibility would have been. It would have been well worth the expense. Number 3, I would have done a better electrical plan for plugs. I designed the way I wanted the van to look, the storage, where I wanted to have things, but I forgot about the plugs. So consequently, they're not necessarily laid out the way I would have done. The main thing is I have electrical outlet at the foot of my bed, but I want one at the head of my bed where I could plug in my phone at night. Number 4, I would have positioned my propane tanks differently. This is another one of that I really wish I'd thought through better. My propane tanks are at the back of the van. They take away the access to my back door. If I were designing the van again, I would seriously consider putting them somewhere that could be accessed from perhaps the side of the van. I might even have designed an exterior panel or compartment so I could put the propane and access it that way. It's not something you necessarily think about when you're looking at the floor plan. But once you've actually lived in the van, you realize how important access is. It's not about having more space. It's about making the space you already have easier to use. Number 5, I would spend more money on the mattress. This one is simple. I would buy the most comfortable mattress I could afford. Don't cheap out on your mattress. You can save money on a lot of things in the van, but sleep isn't one of them. You're going to spend a huge amount of time in that bed. And after traveling, hiking, driving, setting up camp, and doing everything else that comes with van life, having a comfortable place to sleep is incredibly important. If I were building my van again, I would put a much bigger portion of my budget towards the mattress. Number 6, I would design my storage a bit differently. There is another area where living in the van has taught me a lot. I wish I had planned my under-counter storage better. Drawers that would be easier to access would have been really handy. It's one thing to look at the cabinet and think there's lots of storage. But when you're actually living in the van, you quickly learn that accessible storage is much more valuable than storage that's difficult to reach. I also had a designed place for my laundry. That sounded like a great idea when I built the van, and it worked until Lucky came into my life. And now that space is where her litter box goes. So my laundry storage solution didn't exactly survive the arrival of my cat. I love having Lucky with me, but it definitely changed how I use some of the space in my van. And that's something you can't foresee. If I was starting over, I'd plan for those kinds of potential changes.
Number 7.
I would have added a step into the side of the van much earlier. This is one I finally fixed just this year. I added a step to my van recently, and I have to say, I should have done it 5 years ago. It's such a simple thing, but it makes getting in and out of the van so much easier. Sometimes the improvements that make the biggest difference aren't necessarily the most expensive ones. They're the little things you use every single day.
Number 8.
I would also have budgeted for an awning, especially after traveling through some really hot areas. I've realized how valuable shade can be. An awning gives you the outdoor space that's protected from the sun and the rain, and gives you another place to sit during the hottest part of the day, or even when it's rainy. I could still add one to my van, but if I were doing the original build again, I would have planned for it in the beginning. I would have put it into my budget.
Number 9.
I would have researched charging my batteries while driving much more carefully. This is one where I learned an important lesson. When I was building the van, I looked into charging my batteries while driving. At the time, I was told that doing that could invalidate my warranty. So I didn't pursue it any further. But looking back, I wish I had done more research myself. I would have wanted to understand exactly what covered my warranty and what equipment was involved and what my actual options were. So my advice here is, don't just accept one answer when it comes to an important part of your van. Do your own research. Ask questions. And make sure you understand exactly what you're being told before making a decision that could affect how your van works for years.
Number 10.
I would have matched my inverter to my battery bank better. I have a 3,000 watt inverter, and it works. But looking back, I probably should have added more battery capacity to better support a larger inverter. It's another one of those situations where the individual components work, but you really need to think about the entire electrical system together. And things have changed drastically over the last 5 years as well. When I eventually upgrade my batteries, I'll probably increase the battery capacity to better match my inverter system.
My final thoughts.
So those are the things I would change. And the interesting thing is, I don't necessarily think I made any bad decisions when I built my van. I made the best decisions I could with the information and experience and budget I had at the time. And 99% of the time, I have no regrets. But it's a great thing about actually living in your van. You learn. You discover what you use every day. You discover what drives you crazy. You discover what you wish you had. And you discover which things really aren't as important as you thought they were. If you're building your first van, my biggest advice would be this. Don't just think about how everything looks on paper. Think about how you're going to use it every single day. Think about accessibility. Think about repairs. Think about power. Think about storage. Think about comfort. And most importantly, leave yourself some financial breathing room. Because once you start traveling, you never know what you're going to encounter. I'd love to hear what you would do differently, or if you're just starting your van life journey, what are you planning that you absolutely don't want to get wrong? Let me know in the comments. And if you're enjoying following my van life adventures, don't forget to subscribe and come along for the journey. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.